We begin a new letter, letter 21, as the Alter Rebbe begins the letter after inquiring after your welfare of those who love God's name and of those people who willingly volunteer to practice the righteous act of being charitable. The charity of God towards the Holy Land. How? The Alter Rebbe was collecting for those who were completely destitute in the Holy Land. And then under the Ottoman Empire, things were terrible. I mean, terrible isn't the right word to use, but very hard and harsh. And they would, Chassidim, every year would they set a sum that they would put towards giving to their brethren in the Holy Land. So he says, Titol milosi v'tizol kital imrosi. Let my words call to them and my speech trickle like dew. To bestir them, to be swift. To be swift, to be strength, to be strong with the weak hand that they have, meaning the hand referring to their livelihood. Their livelihood was very hampered. They themselves were impoverished. The Hasidic Brotherhood in Russia. Yet they should contribute monies to the land of Israel. And that set sum that they have, they shouldn't just do it once a year and give, but it should be weekly from that set sum, or at least monthly. In other words, apportion what the set sum that you're giving for the year and give it weekly, at least monthly. Donate it that manner, right? Now, why to do that? So he says, because there's a great virtue in swiftness, alacrity, with all commandments, all of God's commandments. In other words, when you do them swiftly, there's what we do and how we do it. So what we do is the actual mitzvah itself, but to do it swiftly is an added huge bonus, which is important, how we do something, not just that we do it. And as our sages have said, that all the commandments should be done in a prompt manner. And where do we learn this idea of fulfilling them in a prompt, swift manner? We actually learn it from Abraham, Avram Avinu, in the story of the binding of Isaac, Akedas Yitzchak, which stands for us and his children forever, an important lesson. Now, the Akedah itself, in other words, that God called upon Abraham to bring his son, his only son, the one he loves, Isaac, as an offering. That was not such a great test. Why? What do you mean? Bring your son? Because God himself spoke to Abraham to do this. And we see throughout the generations, many Jewish people gave up their lives in sanctifying God's name, even though God didn't speak to them to do it. So we can't say that for Abraham that he brought his son as an offering when God spoke to him that he should do this is such a great accomplishment. So then why is this something that parenthetically, we read every single morning in the preparation for the prayers? It's actually the first thing. We after a few, the Adon Olam, we speak about the Akedas Yitzchak. We read it 365 days a year. Doesn't matter what day. It's one of the things that there's no distinction. So why is it so important if giving up your life has been done by many Jews when God didn't speak to them, and yet we use this to exemplify what it means? So that's not what the greatness of Abraham was in that. It's how he did it with a wondrous swiftness, alacrity. How so? He woke up early in the morning. He didn't tarry. Like, okay, I'll do it at the end of the day, I'll go. No, no, no. Woke up early. And not only that, he was quite a wealthy person, man of means, doesn't saddle his own donkey. But he did. Why did he do it? Out of love for God, for what God asked him to do. That demonstrates his joy and eagerness to fulfill God's will. Actually, I don't even know if love is the right term. It's actually not the right term, because afterwards it says, now I know that you're God-fearing, meaning that you do what you're asked to do. And he did that, fulfilling God's will in order to bring gratification to God. I just want to say this parenthetically. This was a test for Abraham. It was, even in the words, it never said to offer him as an offering, to slaughter him as a sacrifice. It just says bring him up on the mountain. And the term bringing up is a term that's used for an offering, but it just means to bring up. That he will be an oila, and oila means like a burnt offering, right? Not that he was going to be burnt, but slaughtered, right? But because he became an oila, he became a holy, pure sacrifice, and in that sense, that's why he couldn't leave the land of Israel, where Abraham did, went to Egypt. Yaakov also went to Egypt, right? He couldn't, because he was pure, because brought up in such a manner. In any case, that's all parenthetical. The point being, as this epitomizes in Abraham, that not only did he serve God out of love because he was enraptured with whatever God wanted, but this is not something that he wanted to bring his son, but he did it out of this sense of reverence of God. God, this is what you want? I'm doing it. Well, he could have got up in the morning and ball and chain, taken himself to do what God wanted, but he did it. He did it with complete devotion, so much so that he rose up early, right, to be swift, prompt, showing his eagerness to fulfill the will of God and give gratification to God. This example of alacrity is where we learn for all mitzvahs. And that's probably why one of the first things we read in the morning is to teach us, hey, prayer, do it with alacrity, first thing in the morning. Now, we prepare for our prayers and we learn before that. But, in other words, it's not like, when I'll get to it, God, I'll pray. No. Show your joy and devotion that you're doing and giving pleasure to God, your maker. That's what we learn from him. That's what we learn from Abraham as the example. And therefore, that's for all mitzvahs, but in particular for the mitzvah of charity, which is superior to all mitzvahs, as we've learned many times. Because it protects us, the act of giving. By its fruits, we're repaid in this world. We're repaid in this world, as we actually have learned. We're repaid with wealth, health, honor, right? And of all kinds of calamities that could come about. As it says, tzedakah tatzil mimovis, as charity saves from death and things that are less than death, right? By giving, it is a protection for us. In other words, that's the fruit that we get from being charitable. The principle is not used up, right? But the fruit which is used up, of course, a fruit of a tree, is something we get now as a benefit. So it's certainly a benefit when we do the mitzvah of being charitable in a swift manner, right? Not waiting. And after all, a person is judged every day. So therefore, by being swift, by giving your charity, not on a yearly basis, but if you do it on a weekly basis, this fund of charity for the Holy Land, or at least in a monthly basis, as the Alter Rebbe said, right? Then you merit by giving what you give today to be protected from today's judgment. So think about your day. How many things do you do with alacrity, with swiftness? How many things you do that you're eager to do? Now, I don't mean, to go, do lunch. Sorry, 1 second. Left door. Who is it? Left. Who is it? Yeah, okay. Left door. The alacrity that we need in everything that we do, every mitzvah we do shows that we really want to fulfill the will of God and to give divine pleasure. That's really important to think about when we engage in doing good, when we engage in doing something godly, when we engage in doing a mitzvah. Davido, why do we read about the Akedah on Rosh Hashanah? Very good question. We read the Akedah, first of all, based on what we just learned, right? Rosh Hashanah, we want to have the alacrity, the swiftness in fulfilling the will of God. But, specifically, the idea of blowing a ram's horn, well, what was caught in the thicket? A ram. And then what did Abraham do? He offered the ram in the stead of his son, right? Which was the ultimate, purpose. So blowing shofar is that offering of God, and so it's alluded to there. One of the explanations. Lori, does divine pleasure include our own divine soul? Very good. If you're motivated to give divine pleasure, then you will automatically be giving pleasure to your divine soul. Because the way to do it is to be attuned, to be aware of, connected to your own divine soul. It is your divine soul that really wants to give that pleasure. Your animal soul, think about it, right? An animal wants its own pleasure, period. Even for the mother to feed her child, right? That the baby calf should suckle from the mother, right? The mother wants that because she's full. She's got to empty herself out. So, as the saying of our sages, more the mother wants to feed the calf than the calf wants to eat. Just sometimes a woman, when she feeds her child, right, needs to do it because it needs more so. So that's a satisfying thing for oneself. Now, talking about the act of it itself is. So the animal soul only wants to find its own satisfaction. The divine soul only wants to find divine satisfaction. So being aware of what you do and to give divine satisfaction is stemming from the divine soul. So we need some kind of attunement, attentiveness to the divine soul. So yes, absolutely correct. Okay. Thank you everybody for your thank yous. I've mentioned this many times, but I got to mention it again. It's just awesome how every day the Alter Rebbe has a new teachings for us to add in our lives. Like there's something new. Sometimes it might be smaller, sometimes a larger idea, but always a golden nugget to take home and to live with for that day. Davida, do we also read about the Akedah for the purpose of bittul and also giving tzedakah swiftly? So yes, thank you, Davida. So what does it mean to give divine satisfaction? It means you have to nullify yourself, bittul. What are you nullifying? Your own self-satisfaction that comes from the animal soul's desire. Putting that aside. Well, why do you have to put it aside? Well, because it's the first natural reaction that we have to life is coming from a self-directed, animal soul, human soul, if you will, that is absorbed with its own self-satisfaction. The self-satisfaction, that doesn't mean it's but your self-satisfaction might be to do something terrific, like feeding your child, right? But it's a self-satisfaction. Nonetheless, it's not divine. It's human, it's natural. But to be divine means to give divine satisfaction, right? Which is again, that's the bittul of putting aside your own self-satisfaction in order to do divine. And that's what brings the alacrity. Your own self-satisfaction is you take it at your pace. And if it's not something you're excited about, you don't do it swiftly. You do it begrudgingly. Or not at all, if you choose that, right? But even if you do it, but the fact that you do it swiftly. So here the idea is to be mindful of this, even if we might not feel it, but if we're aware, and we do it that way, amazing. Folks, there will be TRC today, Tanya Rabbi Community, at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please do join us. Lori, yesterday's letter made me think of a coincidence he wrote about the earth prior to his death, when the body was placed in the earth. Yes, yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, very true. Okay, any other questions? Okay, folks. Amazing. Thank you all. Okay, thank you, Debbie, for you're charged. Beautiful. All right. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zuch and Kedesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Sukkot is coming up tomorrow night. Hopefully, all Jewish homes should have a sukkah. Lulav and Esrog. Contact your local Chabad if you need some help with that. I'm sure many of you have already done that. We'll have Rambam coming up. And Rabbi find it here. See, this afternoon. Have an amazing, wonderful day. Sei gesund.